Ukraine we go, and Joseph Lindsley. Joe, I was thinking about you last night when I'm watching video of the shelling by the Russians of a restaurant and 3 people killed. And I worry about you, and I was thinking about how you go out and about there in Lviv or wherever you are, and you're in the cafes, and I mean, you just can't think that, hey, the Russians are going to be attacking military targets, because it seems like they don't.
Yeah, Bob, good afternoon from Lviv. And indeed, they've been attacking civilians since the very beginning of the full-scale invasion. And, even we have to remember that even when, the Russians were fighting Ukrainian soldiers, most of those soldiers were civilians on February 23rd, 2022. So this is a nation of peace-loving people that's been attacked. And those 2 missiles, they sent 2 missiles into a shopping center and a pizza restaurant in the city of Kramatorsk. And because they have destroyed so much of that city, this was the only real functioning restaurant left in the city, called Ria Pizza, or Pizzeria. And it was very popular with foreign volunteers, with journalists, and everyone working for Victory in Kramatorsk. I mean, almost everyone I know has been to that restaurant at some point. And yesterday, when the Russians attacked it, it was quite crowded. I saw a video of some foreign volunteers. They were having a birthday party. They were talking and celebrating in English. And just 2 hours later, that restaurant was in ruins. And as of now, we have reports there were 10 people killed. There were many children there. I think it's going to be a lot worse as they assess all the damage. There was a famous Ukrainian writer and activist, because indeed, as you mentioned, it is in the cafes of Ukraine where people share ideas, and they find out how to be more effective as they work together for victory. And, in Russian internet channels, especially on Telegram, there are hit lists of key Ukrainian and foreign volunteers. And they even list where they go, with the places they frequent for a cup of coffee, whether it's in Kyiv or cities around the country. And so if anyone starts to forget exactly what kind of menace and evil we're dealing with, this is a reminder. And it came on the 1-year anniversary of another atrocity, of the Russians attacking the shopping center in the city in central Ukraine, Kremenchuk. And so, when you think of the weight of that, 1 year, not just an atrocity a year ago, but so many atrocities in between, it's really a difficult thing to contemplate. Today is also an anniversary here in Ukraine. It's Constitution Day. Here in Lviv, I heard some folk music in the squares. People try to keep their traditions even in this time. But it's also a reminder that Ukrainians have had constitutions for a long time. And going back to 1711, well before our own American Revolution, there was a Cossack constitution of Pilip Orlik. He was a Cossack elected leader, a hetman, and he led this movement to create a constitution with separation of powers in the Cossack heartland in what is now Zaporizhia. And their goal was to protect themselves and protect their liberty, especially from outside invaders. And the czars in Russia could not tolerate this. They hated the Cossacks. They didn't like their freedom, and they were a threat to the tyranny of Moscow. And so for centuries, back from 1711 and even before and onward, Moscow has tried to control the Cossacks, and even so much as in 1920s and 1930s under Stalin, they flooded the Cossack homeland by building these dams. The dams that they're now blowing up, they once used to flood the Cossack homelands in the name of Soviet progress. And so the place where that constitution was codified in 1711, is underwater. Just a reminder for how long Moscow has been trying to erase Ukrainian people, and we saw that once again in that horrible attack yesterday on that pleasant terrace of the restaurant in the city of Kramatorsk.
Horrible. And this morning there's news about the city of Kharkiv, which was occupied by Russia in the early days of the war. It was liberated by the Ukrainians in September, and there's been shelling there today. and reports say 3 civilians killed near their houses. And Joseph, it seems like the military forces in Ukraine have not taken advantage, as of yet anyway, of the chaos within the Russian hierarchy.
Well, I think we won't know yet. There is slow and steady advance, in the counteroffensive, according to the government officials. We've had reports that Ukrainians have taken back territory that the Russians have held since 2014. But I think if there is any surprise in the works, it's going to surprise all of us. But in Kharkiv, the city of Kharkiv was never occupied by the Russians. The citizens were able to keep the Russians out. They came very close to the suburbs of the city, but that the rest of that region was occupied, and that city continues to take poundings because it's so close to Russia, because the Russians can bomb it from the air bases near Belgorod. And so that city, and Kramatorsk is in the same similar situation. It's still close to occupied territories controlled by Russia. And so it is, I mean, everyone I know that goes to Kramatorsk knows they're facing a huge risk, but still they go there. And I don't think this is going to stop them. As I think about I was talking about the Constitution, and I was remembering, Facebook reminded me 1 year ago, I was in Zaporizhia, and I went with a group of American and Ukrainian volunteers through those beautiful, lush fields, so fertile, and the fields sloped down to the Dnipro River, which is now it was a reservoir made by the Soviets. And we had a little gathering on the coast of Nikopol, the riverside town, and we had music and a picnic. We had chefs from the United States, and we had this event for local children, volunteers, and soldiers. And it was so surreal to see that reminder on Facebook, because that water, that reservoir, is now gone. It's now mudflats due to the Russian destruction of the dam that they built 100 years ago. And then the boat club where we had the event is totally destroyed. And then in the photograph was a soldier friend who is now suffering immensely from wounds in the hospital. And so from his efforts in the counteroffensive. And so just looking at that one photograph, as bad as everything seemed back then, and as amazing, Ukraine has been amazing in holding on, but it's a heavy thing to look back and as we have all these little anniversaries, all of the weight that everyone has felt here, all the destruction. And so looking at that picture, I texted my friend who's in the hospital, and I said, how are you doing? And he responded in Ukrainian, just one word, Tremais. I want to make sure I pronounce it exactly correctly, Tremais, which means I hold on. And I think that word really echoes, the spirit of every single person here. There was another popular soldier, Yura Samanuk, who was killed a few days ago, and he was a popular musician, and so people were circulating. People are very mad. I mean, you think that people can never get madder, and the levels of anger. I can't read what some people were posting on Facebook, but one Ukrainian woman, in response to hearing the news of the death of her friend, said, "Moscow freaks are killing very expensive people," and this is indeed happening day by day. Whether it's civilians in cafes or soldiers at the front lines, you're losing the best and the brightest. But I'd still say everyone keeps that one word, Tremayusa, which means I hold on. That's the best we can do.
Well, let's hope for better news tomorrow. Joseph Lindsley in Lviv, thank you as always, and please be careful, Joe.
Thank you, Bob. Until tomorrow.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important, that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Что он сказал?
Well, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?
Come on now. Oh, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?